Today I want to tell you a story about a girl who works at a paint factory. After exhausting shifts, she began having dreams that felt less like dreams and more like a second life. A strange world covered in fog, empty, silent, endless. At first, she thought she was alone there until she realized someone might be watching her from above. This is a story about loneliness, mystery, and the thin line between dreams and reality. But what makes this story truly unsettling is that her dreams didn't reset. They continued. Every night she returned to the same world, the same places, the same paths, while her real life was trapped in routine, exhaustion, and financial struggle. Her dream life became the only place where she could truly explore. But the longer she stayed there, the more the world began to feel real, and the more her real life began to feel like the dream. And one day, she discovered that the person watching her in her dreams might exist in real life. Stay until the end, because this story only gets stranger. I work at a paint manufacturing plant, not the artistic kind of paint. Industrial chemicals, pigments, solvents, the kind of place where your clothes smell like metal and your lungs feel heavier by the end of every shift. My job is repetitive: loud machines, thick air, masks that never fully block the smell. By the time I get home, I don't feel like a person anymore, just a body that needs to lie down. One night, after an especially long shift, I fell asleep faster than usual, but I didn't dream. I arrived. I woke up standing in a vast fog-filled place. No sky, no horizon, just endless pale mist stretching in every direction, like the world had been erased and only atmosphere remained. There were no buildings, no roads, no people, only silence. At first, I panicked. I tried to wake myself up. I screamed. I pinched my arm. Nothing worked. Then I noticed something strange. I didn't feel hunger. I didn't feel thirst. I didn't feel tired. My body still existed, but none of its needs did. Time felt different there. Minutes didn't exist. Hours didn't exist. It felt like I had all the time in the world and nothing to do except walk forward. So I did. I walked through the fog. Sometimes shapes appeared, structures that looked like ruins, staircases that led nowhere, doors without walls, corridors fading into nothing. None of it felt hostile. It felt abandoned, forgotten. I wasn't scared. I felt chosen, like I had been placed there for a reason. When I eventually woke up in my apartment, my alarm clock said only 6 hours had passed. But inside, it felt like years. I realized this was becoming my second life. The dreams kept happening, not every night, but always after long shifts at the factory, especially on days when the smell felt stronger, when the ventilation failed, when my head felt heavy and warm. At first, I thought it was stress, burnout, exhaustion. Then I noticed something else. Each time I returned to the fog world, it continued. It didn't reset like normal dreams. The paths I had walked before were still there. The structures I discovered remained. The sense of progress stayed with me. It felt less like dreaming and more like relocating. In that world, I began to explore intentionally. I mapped areas in my mind. I tested limits. I tried to understand the rules. There's no food, no pain, no aging, only movement, observation, thought. With nothing else to do, I started thinking deeply about loneliness, about what it means to exist when no one is watching. In real life, I couldn't afford travel. I couldn't afford hobbies. I couldn't afford fun. My money went to rent, bills, food, transportation. My time went to the factory. While other people posted photos from beaches and concerts, my only escape was sleep. So I traveled there instead. The world was dark, silent, unwelcoming, but it was still a world. Sometimes I wondered if this was my brain's way of coping, building an alternate reality, because real life offered nothing but repetition. Other times, I wondered if it was something chemical, something in the air, something in my lungs, something altering my perception. The smell of paint followed me even into my dreams. Paint, dreams, and the psychology of being alone. Eventually, I started researching. I looked up what prolonged exposure to paint fumes could do: hallucinations, vivid dreams, dissociation, altered perception of time. It made too much sense. Maybe my brain, overstimulated by chemicals and exhaustion, built a second reality to escape the first. A reality where I didn't need money, I didn't need food, I didn't need rest, I didn't need to survive only to exist. But what disturbed me most wasn't the science, it was how emotionally real it felt. In the fog world, I began to feel like an explorer, a philosopher, a lone observer in an infinite space. I studied my own loneliness there. In real life, I was alone because I worked too much. In the dream world, I was alone because there was no one else. Both felt different, both felt heavy, and yet I preferred the dream, because at least there, my time belonged to me. My coworkers talk about vacations, about trips they want to take, about experiences I'll probably never afford. My only journeys happen after I fall asleep, in a place that might be a hallucination or might be my mind breaking under pressure. Sometimes I worry I'm damaging my brain. Other times I worry I'll lose access to that world, because as dark as it is, it's still the only place I get to travel. If this is caused by paint fumes, exhaustion, and isolation, then maybe my second life is just a side effect. But if I'm being honest, it feels more real than my first one. I learned to navigate the dream like a map. By the time months had passed, I stopped thinking of the fog world as a dream. It became a territory. I learned how to move through it without fear. I recognized repeating landmarks, a staircase that always curved upward but never reached a ceiling, a field of broken pillars that hummed faintly when I stood still, a long corridor that felt warmer the farther I walked. I built a mental map. I tested boundaries. I tested distance. I tested myself. The strangest part was how stable it felt. Nothing glitched. Nothing warped the way dreams usually do. It followed a quiet internal logic, not random, but unfamiliar. I began to feel like an explorer in an uninhabited world. At first, solitude felt peaceful. Then it started to feel heavy. Then it started to feel unbearable. I caught myself hoping irrationally that I would see someone, even a silhouette, even a voice, even a shadow that didn't belong to me. But every time I walked deeper to the fog, it remained empty, a whole world, and only one person inside it. I started wanting company more than answers. My waking life continued shrinking. The factory, the commute, the exhaustion, the chemical smell that never fully washed off. I worked so much that travel became a fantasy. Vacations were for other people. Fun was a luxury I couldn't justify. My only escape was sleep, and my only destination was loneliness. In the fog world, I began speaking out loud, just to hear a voice. Sometimes I imagined conversations. Sometimes I sat in silence, listening to nothing. I thought about loneliness as a concept, how humans are social by design, how isolation bends the mind, how solitude can become either meditation or torture. I wondered if this world existed only because I had no space in real life to explore, to wander, to live freely. Maybe my brain built a universe because I couldn't afford to see the real one. But no matter how far I traveled there, I never found another presence. Not once. And that started to feel intentional. My director told me he dreams of watching a girl from the sky. Eventually, the weight of it became too much. One day at work during a break, I told my director, not everything, but enough. I told him I'd been having vivid, recurring dreams, that they felt continuous, that I explored a fog filled world alone, that it felt like a second life. He listened quietly. Then he said something that made my stomach drop. He told me he also had a recurring dream. In his dream, he floats above a strange, empty world, a world drowned in mist, a world with broken structures and endless corridors. And in that world, he always sees a girl walking alone. He said he never speaks to her, he just watches from above, observing, following, wondering if she's real. This story may sound like a dream or like a psychological illusion, but for the girl, it became a second life, one she couldn't simply wake up from. And what she discovered toward the end changes everything, because the question is no longer whether her dreams were real, but who was really watching whom. This is not the end of her story. In the next part, I'll reveal what happened after she realized she wasn't alone in that world. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes reality feels more like a dream than dreams themselves.